rolling. Today I'm going to tell you about my experience with chemotherapy. The reason why I had to have chemotherapy is because I had cancer about a couple years back, around 2011. Before that happened, I just want to let you know I was 44 years old, so this is about 2010, went for my first mammogram. And everything on paper was fine. And they recommended women to start going around in their 40s. So I heard a lot of horror stories about mammograms, so I put it off. Then I decided to go, and my first one was fine. Everything was great. Then in January 2011, I got a letter reminding me from the doctor's office that, oh, it's your time to get a mammogram. So I made an appointment, and I went. I got my mammogram, came back home, and the next day, I got a call from the mammogram office, and they said something, that they found something odd, and they wanted to come back for another mammogram. Now, I'm the kind of person who, oh, it's nothing until something is serious. Then I'll accept it, but up until that time, I wasn't really concerned. So I went back to the doctor's office, but I went with my husband for the second time. So then a more in-depth mammogram and more ultrasounds and everything. And they asked me to wait for the results. They wanted to bring it up to a pathologist and have them analyze it, and then would call me and Dave to come into the office with 3 other doctors, and they sat down. And that moment I knew, something was bad that was going to happen. So they told me they found a small tumor in my right breast, and they felt that it was cancerous, but they wanted to do a biopsy. So the next week, they made an appointment for a biopsy, and that was the worst experience of my life. It was a table. There's 2 holes, and you have to lay down and put your breast in those holes, and the doctor comes in and pokes, and oh, it was awful. So I'm on the table, and I start crying, and I realized, I decided, I knew what was going on. So anyways, fast forward, it was cancer, and the doctor recommended that I have surgery, and I could either lumpectomy, which was take the tumor out, or a mastectomy, and that would take the whole breast, and it was my decision. So I decided, well, first, it's called stage 1, which means they cut it really early, so it's nothing too serious. But if you took the lump out, it would be no more treatment. That's the end of surgery, so okay, fine. But I still decided I didn't want to obsess for the rest of my life that it would come back. So I decided to go ahead with a bilateral mastectomy, meaning I had both surgeries in my breast. After I got pregnant, I had to have children, and breastfeed, your breasts will never be the same again. They're lopsided, or they shrink, or whatever. So I thought, it's a perfect time to get new perky breasts. Why not? So I decided I would have double mastectomy and everything. So during the surgery, they had the surgery, and it was all done, and it was terrible, yes, but I did it. And then about a month later, the doctor contacted me and said, all the skin tissue from inside we sent to a pathologist, and they looked at it, and they found another small tumor inside, and we're just not confident that everything is okay. So we recommend chemo. At that moment, at the telephone, I just broke down, because I was fine up until that moment, but my mom had for many years before had chemo, and I watched what happened to her, and I was scared to death. So I discussed it with Dave, and we decided for my future and for my health and for our daughter, you know, hopefully getting married someday and all that, but to go ahead and do chemo. Ugh, it was the worst experience of my life. I had to have 6 rounds, so 6 times of chemo. And every 21 days, when we would start in 2011 all the way up to August of 2011, for 6 months, that whole period of time, every 21 days, I would have to go back and get an infusion of chemotherapy. So the first round, it wasn't that bad. I got a little nauseous and I was exhausted, but they gave me so much medication so I could deal with it. But the nurse warned me that my hair would fall out from the chemo and from the medication, especially because it focused so much on the breast area. So I didn't want to wait to hear some horrible horror story of women looking at themselves in the mirror and seeing their hair fall out and having bald spots. I didn't want that experience, so I just wanted to take control. So I decided 1 or 2 days before my second round of treatment, about 20 days after the first round of chemotherapy, I told my husband, I want you to shave my head. So I went to the store, bought a few different wigs and really long blonde or red curly wigs. I decided if I'm going to change, why not try something new? My daughter was about 5 at the time, and my husband went into the bathroom with me with a towel on the floor, and my daughter videotaped the whole thing, and my husband got the shears and cut my hair and was ready to shave it all off. Really, didn't bother me, no big deal. I'm going to put a wig on, I'm going to change myself, it's going to be fun. And then, by my 3rd or 4th chemotherapy treatment, I woke up one morning and I looked in the mirror and I had no eyebrows, no eyelashes. And all my hair fell off. I had none. It was really nice that I didn't have to shave my armpits for about 6 months, but it looked like a ghost in the mirror. It was terrible. And I hated it. Anyways, so every infusion was worse and worse and worse. And by the 3rd time, I was home in bed for a week after the infusion. I was throwing up, the medicine didn't help, I was dizzy, it was terrible. And the last one was the best. It was like the first one. My body became used to the chemotherapy. Anyway, I wouldn't wish the worst, and it wouldn't be the worst enemy, but I survived. I wouldn't want to wish it on anybody, but I survived. So there's a story related to that. So during the surgery and chemo, I was still teaching here. So really, my students knew why I was taking days off for 2 weeks at a time and during spring break. And I told them that I would have chemotherapy and I wasn't really sure how I was going to respond. So the first treatment, no problem, I taught. And then I think it was a Wednesday I was teaching. And I said, I just want to let you know, this weekend I'm planning to shave my head. So the next week when I come to teach you, I'll be using a wig. So please don't talk about it. Don't look at it. I'm not really sure I'm going to handle it. So let's just try to ignore the situation. So I just wanted to let the students know how I felt and everything was fine. So I shaved my hair all off, and I showed up the first time with a really long red wig. And it was in this classroom. I walked in, and all the students here already with their crazy wigs on their head. Blue, mohawks, everything. I walked in, we were laughing for about 20 minutes, and then everything was back to normal. It was fine, and I accepted it. And it wasn't something that I was concerned about. And that's my story.